Hello and welcome to Mike's Garage. If you've already subscribed to our channel, thank you very much. If you haven't yet, please do. And when you do, be sure and tap on the notification bell so you'll be notified every time we put up a new video. And if you tap on the little like button, we appreciate that too. Well, I haven't seen anybody in about a week. Now, you think you haven't seen me, I haven't seen you either. And it's been about a week. We've been real busy. The weather has been incredibly hot. I haven't even wanted to go to the garage. However, we're out here now in the evening. And I've been asked a whole lot of questions. When are you doing this and when are you doing that? And I'm really sorry. I'm very disorganized. And I do things as they come up. And we got in the middle of all our projects, which, by the way, our projects are going along a lot better since the Born Free show. I made a whole bunch of contacts that I went there to see, and there's going to be a lot of neat stuff coming from that. Now, our original cameraman, Mike, who was our first cameraman when we first got started, he's been real busy. He's been having a bit of a time lately, and his bike has been apart for quite a while. And it's getting completely gone over. It's beautiful. But he didn't have anything to ride. And there's this old Panhead he and his uncle have been swapping back and forth for years. I think his uncle's had it since somewhere in the 70s. And every once in a while they'd trade it back and forth, and I've ridden next to it a few times, and it's a real interesting old bike. I get questioned quite often. People write in and say, well, I just inherited this bike, or I just got this old bike. What should I do before I start it up? It's been sitting for so many years. This is the perfect bike to show it on, because all we're going to do is get it running so Mike's got something to ride while we get his other bike done. And then eventually we'll tear it down and do it too. But in the meantime, it's got a good old soul. It's been a lot of places. It's been a lot of fun. I've ridden next to it on a few occasions, so I know it'll run again. So what I'm going to do right now is talk about exactly what we're going to do to get this relic running again. I think this time it's been sitting about 5 years. And it's going to need a little effort put into it. If we start at the front, I think about 5 years ago, I put a bunch of used parts together and built Mike a 21-inch front wheel and got the front brake working, and that was a vast improvement on this bike. In fact, I didn't have the original brake cable tube that runs up the back of the brake here, this tube here. So we ran down to the auto parts store, and that is a cooling line for an automatic transmission. I think it was less than $3. That's another thing I'm trying to show. I want to show what we can do for very little money just to get this relic back on the road again. It's going to be fun. But it's a pretty funny bike. Anyway, what I would do first, of course, or what I'm going to do, is drain the fluids out of it. And the carburetor's been sitting with dirty fuel and stuff in it for quite a while. So I'm going to pull the carburetor and manifold. And I'm sure Mike probably showed the manifold already. It's a little bit disgusting looking. We'll get that open. And we'll put new O-rings and stuff in there. This is a later setup on here for the heads. This being a 48 pan, it actually had the original big nuts here, the plumber fittings. But this one has O-rings. I don't know if it's got adapters in there or different heads. Doesn't really matter to me. I'm going to clean it up and seal it up anyway. And Mike's uncle, got to hand it to him, in the middle of nowhere with a leak, he knew how to seal it up. It ain't pretty, but it's not leaking. It's dry. Now, as far as draining the oil on these old bikes, and I'm going to try to show this on one of our next videos, there is a drain in the bottom of the crankcase for them. It's not on the very bottom. It's on the left side, right down near the bottom. Sometimes you can get them out and sometimes you can't. I know this motor is wet sumped. It just puked oil all over the garage floor. So I know it's wet sumped. I'd like to drain it. And that's what I'm going to try to do. And if so, I'm going to show it. Okay. Now, it's still got a 6-volt system on it. And as I recall, it was working fine. Mike bought a new battery for it. So we'll charge that up. Like I said, I'm taking this in order. I actually made a list. Blow it all off and wipe it down. Drain the oil. Remove and clean the carburetor. Charge the battery. I checked it. It's up. It's a pretty new one, but we will charge it again. Something to remember when charging a 6-volt battery. If, in fact, you have a charger, or you buy a charger, a little trickle charger, something that charges at like 1 amp, something real puny is what they need. But what you want to be sure is that that charger is set up for 6 volts. Now, a lot of the chargers today have an electronic brain in them, and I don't know how, but they know that that battery is a 6 or a 12 volt. Okay, before we want to start it or anything like that, we're going to torque the engine and transmission down. That's number 4. Okay, number 5. Torque the heads and cylinders before you start it up. It's just a little bit of prevention, caution. Okay, and we're going to adjust the valves, which should be done after the heads and cylinders are torqued down. Next thing we're going to do is we'll check the points and the timing. We'll reinstall that carburetor that will be all cleaned out and nice by then. We'll clean out those tanks, which brings up another issue. These tanks were just hanging on the frame when we brought the bike in here. And the bottom mount is missing. Part of it's here. So I'm going to take a couple pieces of angle iron and finish this off and make it work to hold the bottom of those tanks, the front lower mount. And I'll wash the tanks out and rebuild the petcock and that kind of fun stuff. Okay, then we replace the oil, pour some gas in it, and if all my calculations are correct, it should light right off. It always did, so we'll make it do it again. That's basically what we're going to do. I'm also going to replace the rear tire. It's a Goodyear that was made probably, I don't know, about the time I was born. It's really an old tire. And let's see, then I think we'll repair all the lighting. If it runs okay, we'll repair all the lighting. And the lighting, I think the reason, because I've ridden next to it in the dark, and it didn't make things much brighter, I think what we have is a 6-volt system using 12-volt bulbs. So it's kind of like a really dim lit match out there in the dark. So, unless you got a full moon, And that's about it. Then I'm going to take it for a ride and say, okay, Mike, here's your bike. Go for a ride. So hopefully we'll get that done real soon. Basically, I wanted to go over those different steps. And I hope I was clear enough on those. Because that's really what you need to do. It's also a very good idea to change the oil in the transmission. You don't know how long it's been sitting in there. And quite often people hose the bike down and there's going to be water in the transmission. So you want to drain the oil and change it. Put in fresh. And that's about it. I think the next thing I'm going to do is get it like a little bit more naked so that we can show it as we go through it. So that's what we'll do in our next video. And until then, I'll see you out on the road.